sign flickered as Alex pulled into the vast, desolate parking lot of the 24-hour Walmart. A neon hum buzzed intimately, and the air seemed heavier than usual for the small middle-of-nowhere town. Alex had heard the stories about this place, how employees whispered of strange happenings during the graveyard shift. He didn't believe in that kind of stuff, but desperate times calls for desperate measures. He needed supplies for the long drive ahead, and this was the only store within 50 miles. As he walked through the sliding doors, they stuttered halfway, emitting an unsettling screech before letting him in. The fluorescent lights inside cast a sickly, unnatural glow. Despite the 24 hours open sign, the store seemed abandoned. Shelves stretched endlessly in every direction, their contents oddly disorganized, like someone had hastily rearranged them. The faint sound of static crackled from unseen speakers. Alex grabbed the shopping cart, its wheels squeaking miserably, and began navigating the aisles. He grabbed snacks, water bottles, and some batteries, but something felt off. He couldn't quite put his fingers on it. Maybe it was the way the shadows clung to the corners, or the faint, almost imperceptible sound of shuffling footsteps that seemed to echo just beyond his hearing range. In the electronics section, the TVs all turned on at once. The screens glowed with static, and for a brief second, Alex thought he saw faces within the noise. Distorted, screaming faces. He stumbled back, nearly knocking over a rack of DVDs. "Just the old wiring," he muttered. Trying to calm himself, he laughed nervously and turned to leave the aisle, but then froze. A man stood at the end of the aisle, or at least what looked like a man. He wore a Walmart vest, but his face was pale, his eyes sunken and lifeless. His mouth hung open unnaturally. A silent scream etched into his expression before Alex could speak or move. The figure flickered, literally flickered like an image on a broken screen, and vanished. In the store dropped sharply. Alex could see his breath fogging the air as a sudden oppressive silence invoked the space. He pushed his cart faster, trying to convince himself he hadn't seen anything. He turned into the frozen food aisle, but it stretched impossibly long. The freezers lining both sides extended into darkness. The overhead lights dimmed. Then the banging started. It was faint at first, a rhythmic pounding that seems to come from inside the freezers. Alex hesitated, his curiosity getting the better of him, and he leaned in closer to one of the glass doors. It was frosted over, but he could see faint handprints smeared across the inside. The banging grew louder, more frantic. The glass began to crack, spiderwebbing outward. He stumbled back just as the door shattered, releasing an icy blast that knocked him off his feet. A figure crawled out, emasculated, its joints bending of unnatural angles. It dragged itself towards Alex, its mouth opening impossibly wide, emitting a guttural wail that made his ears ring. He scrambled to his feet, abandoned his cart, and bolted. The store began to change. Aisles shifted, twisting like a labyrinth. Signs hung at odd angles, their lettering now unreadable. Symbols. The air was thick with metallic smell like blood, and the floor felt sticky beneath Alex's sneakers. His heart pounded as he ran, hearing whispers all around him. They spoke in voices he recognized, his mother, his best friend, even himself, but their tone was mocking, filled with malice. "Alex!" One voice hissed from behind him. He didn't look back. He turned a corner and found himself in a toy section. Dolls lined the shelves, their eyes following him as he moved. One by one, they began to fall from their perches, landing on the floor in twisted heaps. Their plastic limbs twitched, and then they began crawling towards him. He screamed and sprinted towards the front of the store. The sliding doors was in sight, but they were covered in something dark and vicious, pulsating like a living thing. Despite he looked around for another exit, that's when he saw them, employees, dozen of them, their uniforms tattered, their bodies twisted and wrong. They stood between him and the door, staring at him with hollow eyes. "Stay forever! Stay forever, Alex!" One of them goggled, his voice a wet, choking rasp. Alex grabbed the metal display rack and swung it wildly, knocking over one of the figures. It let out an ear-piercing screech as it hit the floor, black ooze spilling from his shattered head. The others advanced, their movement jerky like marionettes, controlled by invisible strings. He fought his way through, his lungs burning, adrenaline propelling him forward. Finally, he reached the doors. He clawed at the dark substance covering them, feeling it scream under his hands like worms. With a final desperate shove, he broke through and stumbled into the parking lot. The cool night air hit him like a wave. But the relief was short-lived. He turned back towards the store. It was empty, abandoned, with an old tattered sign hanging in the window, showing the new address for that particular Walmart. Alex started running towards his vehicle. As he drove away, his radio crackled to life, a distorted whisper through the static. "Come back soon. If you don't, we will come to you." And that night, hunt him. It hunt him for the rest of his days.